As a marketing leader, you know the story. You spend millions of dollars driving traffic to your company's website, but the results just aren't what you hoped. On top of that, 81% of marketing leaders say website ownership is a challenge. There's a better, faster way with Webflow. Webflow's visual-first platform gives your marketing team the freedom and flexibility to truly own your website. From launching a new web experience to optimizing for performance, Webflow gives you the tools to drive business growth fast. Unlock your website's full potential today at webflow.com.
It's been more than 20 years since hipsters in Portland, Oregon embraced Pabst Blue Ribbon as their favorite beer brand. Ironic or not, it fed an association with alternative culture and the arts that the venerable beer brand has continued to embrace today. How and why that happened is what we'll be discussing today with Rachel Keeton, Marketing Director for Pabst Brewing, on the Marketer's Brief podcast, our weekly discussion of marketing news and trends that have the industry buzzing. This summer, PBR is reviving Project Pabst, a two-day, two-stage music festival in Portland featuring era-spanning alternative artists like Big Thief, Denzel Curry, The Violent Femmes, and T-Pain. It's a lineup made to match the wide demographic and independent mindset of today's Pabst drinker. We'll also discuss how Pabst's scrappy marketing helped the business turnaround last year and why the Bud Light fiasco had little to do with it. I'm John Springer, Senior Reporter at Ad Age, and this is the Marketer's Brief podcast. Rachel Keeton, welcome to the Marketer's Brief podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Rachel, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be the marketing director at Pabst.
So I've spent about 6 years on the marketing team at Pabst Brewing Company, 2 of which I spent leading the PBR marketing team. But prior to that, I spent time on some of our smaller regional brands. So I was based in Detroit, Michigan, working on brands like Stroh's and Schaefer and Natty Boh. And then I spent, prior to that, the first half of my career on the agency side. I was a strategist, also based in Detroit.
So in Pabst, what you have is a venerable classic beer brand, but I guess it's one that doesn't really have anything near the marketing budgets of its competitors. So, from a big picture perspective, how do you sort of approach that from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, I think, for us, we always try to remain scrappy and we get creative, to do that and to make some noise with our consumers. It's not a secret that we spend a lot less than some of the big competitors out there on our advertising. So it can be a little bit of a challenge, but we've got a team of really creative folks here kind of trying to make noise to stand out and bring some cool creative ideas to life that we think our consumers, respond really well to.
Okay. And so coming up here, you've got a big event this summer called Project Pabst. I'm going to describe a 2-day, 2-stage music festival in Portland. Let's start to talk a little bit about the history of this, because I think this is like the 10th anniversary, but I guess you can kind of fill me in on sort of what is coming into this event.
Yeah, so Project Pabst ran from 2014 to 2017. And it was really born out of PBR's connection to music and to culture at the time, and I wasn't here at the time, but just kind of talking with the team the brand was sponsoring a lot of festivals. They were seeing firsthand, all the costs that go into that and the consumer experience. And they just wanted to do something a little different and really celebrate the brand's roots in Portland and some of that growth that kind of happened there in the 2000s. And so started in Portland, branched out to a couple other cities, but they ended it in 2017 on a good note.
Okay. So bringing it back this year, why?
I think first and foremost, the demand was there. It was something that consumers and our distributor partners always brought up and always kind of pushed us to consider bringing it back to life. We've got a distributor partner up in the Pac Northwest. It's a really good partner of ours, and they really challenged our leadership team here at Pabst to bring it back and for us to all get behind it. And so that's one of the other reasons why we're bringing it back in full force. Had a great time for us. It's our 180th anniversary. So it's kind of the ultimate birthday party for Pabst.
Good. The Bill actually is a show that I could go to with my son. I'll see the Violent Femmes. He'll be into the Jeff Rosenstock.
It's a good mix.
Think about that as sort of a multi-generational event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like the beer brand itself. So we wanted people to be able to go. Our team spent a lot of time thinking through that lineup, working with experts in Portland to bring it to life. But yeah, I mean, we felt like the lineup really was representative of the brand itself. We'll have to get you out over to Portland to check it out.
That would be fun. So you mentioned earlier you had saw some growth in Portland in the 2000s. I wonder if you can kind of talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the often wrote about hipster resurgence 2000s of Pabst Blue Ribbon. At the time, I think the brand stood out because it wasn't doing a lot of the same kind of mainstream advertising that some of the other players were. And people, there and in a lot of other cities across the country kind of chose it as a badge brand.
Yeah. And I have to ask, I mean, that might have come about a little bit ironically, at least it might have seemed so in Williamsburg, Brooklyn,
Yeah,
for a while.
there's a few different theories I've read at least. I certainly wasn't here in the early 2000s to see that happen, but it's something I think we've tested a lot around now in recent years just to learn around that association of hipsters and how people define that, and even that has changed so much over the years.
So has the Hipster Association influenced the brand?
Yeah, I think it's really ties back to the brand itself. It's always kind of stood it for this independent, kind of do it yourself attitude and spirit. And so whether that's, our consumers or the partners or bands even that we work with, they all kind of have that same mindset and attitude. And so we just try to stay true to that and continue leaning into it and showing up in culture in those ways.
Yeah. How are you doing that? In any particular instances you could share of how you're going about it?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're such a non-traditional kind of marketing brand. So we rely, heavily on social, earned media, partnerships, and events. And really, that's where we spend our marketing dollars. That's where we spend our focus. And part of that too is just to, it feels more authentic, I think, for us as a brand.
Okay. The creative industries that you would get around would be like visual art chefs, skate culture, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Music, service industry is a big piece for us, art, sports, but really, yeah, people just kind of, having that same attitude and mindset.
Okay. And it seems like, I mean, today maybe it's not all that unique, but there's a lot of beer brands that want in on the music space these days. And I'm thinking of some of the big guys, Bud Light and Coors Light have country stars now. Pabst, as we talked about, sort of had the alternative space. What does Pabst see in music, and why has music been effective for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels like every brand is kind of playing in that space, at least on the beer side nowadays. I think for probably a lot of those brands, ours included, music is something that brings people together. Beer brings some people together. And so I think it makes a lot of sense. But for us, we don't think of it as really forcing the brand into the music space, but we really try to connect authentically and to celebrate the music that our drinkers are passionate about. We've got a long connection to the music space, so we just try to build on that.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different maybe than some of the other brands are doing it. And sort of you've got your own festival. You're not
Mhm.
necessarily sponsoring a festival, right? So there's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, we still do sponsor some festivals, but it's not, obviously the Coachellas or ACLs or Lollapaloozas of the world. We try to really focus our effort and our spend on festivals that feel like kind of perfectly tailored for the brand. We've got one coming up in California in a few weeks called No Values. We've got punk rock bowling also in a few weeks. So we try to pick spaces that feel right for the brand when we are sponsoring festivals. But we work with a lot of bands in the music space, outside of the festivals and events.
So how does it work? How do you know that these associations with music and so forth are paying off for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the instinctual connection, but we also see it in our consumer data, the social sentiment, and how much that matters to the people that buy your beer.
Mhm. Demographically, is it something that you're trying to target, or you're kind of open on that?
For who we're talking to demographically.
Yeah.
I think for us, it's more of a mindset that we try to talk to versus any specific demographic or city or region. It really is that sort of like independent spirit. fun-loving consumer that likes to do things a little bit differently.
Great. And when you're doing programs like this, or just in general, how is Pabst looking at sort of where it's getting its new customers from? And in other words, are you finding new customers? Are you spurring existing customers to spend more often or buy more often? What's your point of view there?
Yeah, I think for us, it has to be a healthy mixture of both. You know, you don't want to run the risk of losing your identity as a brand. So we try to stay true to our core. And so even when we're building relevance with new drinkers, it's important to not lose sight of the current audience. So, above all, I think we just try to celebrate our drinkers. And, I say it all the time, I'm very biased with this, but I think PBR just has the best fans. They're super engaged with the brand. Social is a really great tool for us to be able to connect with them and build on that. But I think the passion that they have for PBR it's infectious, and that energy is really contagious, and I think is a way to help us, reach new consumers.
Okay. So we're talking with Rachel Keeton of Pabst Brewing, and we'll be back right after this from our sponsor.
Let's be real for a sec. We all know that your website shouldn't be a static asset. It should be dynamic and drive conversions. That's marketing 101. But 54% of marketing leaders say web updates take too long. That's over half of you listening right now. That's where Webflow comes in. Their visual-first platform allows you to build, launch, and optimize web experiences fast. That means you can set ambitious goals and your site can rise to the challenge. Learn why teams like Dropbox and Orange Theory trust Webflow with their business growth today at webflow.com.
Before we continue, I want to remind our listeners about Ad Age's Business of Brands event set for September 18th and 19th in Chicago. Hear from marketing leaders at United Airlines, Molson Coors, State Farm, and more. Learn more and buy tickets at adage.com/businessofbrands. So we're here with Rachel Keeton of Pabst Brewing. We're talking about promoting the brand via concerts and through independent artists and so forth. Now let's talk a little bit about the beer industry. Just in general, how would you assess the health of PBR today?
Yeah, I think the brand is in a really healthy position. We spend a lot of time refocusing on our core business, focusing on the fundamentals, doing the right things in store and at shelf, and we're really starting to see that pay off. So last year, the brand returned to growth. We've outpaced industry trends. This year, similar story. We're off to a really strong start. And I think we're also hitting a big milestone for PBR with the 180th anniversary. I think that alone speaks volumes about the brand and how it stood the test of time. And I think it's amazing to be a part of kind of reaching that historic anniversary.
Yeah, I mean, the general trends of sort of what we call mainstream beers, haven't been great over a long period of time, right? There's a little sort of a fracturing of the industry and
Yeah.
sort of a long-term trend that's not great. But I don't know how Pabst thinks about that. Do you think about, maybe we need a premium light product at a higher price point to sort of get by, or how do you look at industry trends like that?
Yeah, I think for us, one of the things that was one of the fundamentals that we spent time assessing was our pricing strategy. And for us, we just had to evaluate where we compete, the brands that we play against, and be very realistic about that. And we're a below premium brand. So that is the price position we need to have at store. That's what people expect of us. That is, who we're competing against. So for us, it doesn't make sense to just take our price up to that premium tier. And so I think now that we've kind of seen how this has played out for us, have seen the growth happen when we've got those things right, I think we feel good about that direction for the brand.
Okay. And so we can't talk about beer without mentioning Bud Light and the sort of upheaval in the industry last year. I know that Pabst was a beneficiary of that. I don't know how you sort of saw how it played out from your point of view.
Yeah, I think we didn't necessarily benefit as much as one might think. Pabst is a value, full flavor lager. Bud Light is a light premium lager. So there's a slightly different consumer there. But the work that our team and our insights and category management team did pointed to about a third of our growth last year being attributed to that situation. So the rest of the growth was just based on the fundamentals, having the right packs at the right distribution, right price, and then complementing that with marketing that we felt connected to beer drinkers.
Yeah. So the brand didn't do anything special, or did it do anything special to be sure that it was a beneficiary?
Didn't do anything special. We just kept doing what we were doing. We had already planned a campaign. We had a partnership with Wade Boggs last summer around Cool Blue, our kind of historic mascot, played some fun with that. So that campaign was already in the works. We just continued with that and continued to build. And, from a marketing perspective, we don't have a change of strategy, a year from now or, a year out from that. We're just staying true to what we've done and the things our fans love.
Thanks for reminding me of the Wade Boggs thing. That was one of the things that landed in my inbox last year that I
Yeah.
didn't do enough about. But that's funny. I may as well ask you, how did that come about? Because that was an unusually funny
Yeah.
campaign.
I mean, honestly, it was an idea between our team internally. We were kind of brainstorming around how to integrate the brand with sports. If, it was baseball season starting, we were kind of planning in the previous year for that. And somebody had just made a comment around like, oh, it'd be cool to work with Wade Boggs. Yeah, like he's a legend. And then we were looking into it and we're like, oh, he kind of like young Wade Boggs kind of looks like that mascot that we have. And that was, where the idea was born. We worked with some freelancers to kind of help us clean up the rough idea and to bring it to life. And he was thankfully very down to work on it and was a great partner throughout.
Yeah, that's fun. So the mascot, the cartoon character, kind of came from the past. And
Yeah, he was it's Cool Blue. He was shown as a bartender, as a superhero. He was always playing every sport out there. So there's a baseball version of him, a football version. There's grown to be, quite a wide variety of Cool Blues now. But yeah, he was kind of always tied in some of those 70s, 80s advertising.
yeah, I look back at some of the Pabst advertising in the past. It kind of veered. It went from one extreme to the other. If you look back to the 70s and
Yeah,
80s with some of those ads, but I love the Wade Boggs thing. It was just really
yeah.
odd, odd and funny. So getting back to the Bud Light thing, from your seat, did anything happen that you thought the industry could learn a lesson from, or what did you think as that situation sort of played out for Bud Light?
Yeah, I think, one of the key learnings really is just that it shows the importance of understanding social media marketing and how much that's evolved and how much it has evolved the way that brands approach marketing overall. The way that we need to think social first and prioritize putting strategy and rigor into it. Because I think consumers at the end of the day have a lot more control over how marketing messages are amplified, in a lot of regards have more control than the brands themselves in terms of what gets amplified on social media.
Okay. Pabst had a mini scandal sometime
Hmm.
before that Bud Light thing, but the eat ass thing came out. And then anybody learn anything from that at Pabst?
Yeah, I mean, similar, with that, it was really just having some more rigor in place with our process and moving forward with it.
Okay. So how about an update on some of the other regional beer brands in the company? I know we mentioned a couple of them already, but
Yeah.
what can you say about sort of how these brands are marketing themselves, and I guess that's a local thing for them.
Yeah. I mean, they have a hold a special place in my heart since that's where I started at
Yeah.
Pabst. But I think the approach varies so much brand to brand because of that local connection. So what works for Texas or for, Lone Star in Texas versus Rainier in the Pac Northwest is going to be different. But the thing I think across the board that they do really well is have fun with local partnerships and really amplify those. So, for example, Old Style in Chicago, they have
Mhm.
an awesome partnership with Malort. If you spent any time in Chicago, you know this. It's called a Chicago handshake. It's a pint of Old Style, a shot of Malort, very memorable, but it's a local tradition. And so, I think less of a handshake, more of a middle finger based on the taste of Malort. But the brand manager there, he's done an incredible job of bringing this program to life. It's already been a tradition, but he's been really amplifying that with consumers. He's incorporating bartenders in the service industry. And anywhere you go in Chicago in a bar, you see signage for the Chicago handshake. You see it, you know it, people are doing it. So it's examples like that where they're really building on something locally. And that's been a cool one in particular to see come to life.
Great. What have you found the most challenging as a Pabst marketer?
Yeah, I think, I alluded to this earlier, but it's an interesting category with a lot of spending that happens. And for Pabst, we always have to kind of push the needle and think creatively and do things differently. It can be a challenge. I think that is one of the things that makes it fun for us as marketers because of the team that we have, because of this kind of scrappy mindset that the brand has. So yeah, I think it kind of is a double-edged sword.
Okay, we got time for one more here. I'd like to ask if you look out at the world, any brands or campaigns that you admire or have learned from out there?
Yeah, not necessarily a brand or campaign, but there's a newsletter that I very much admire called Link in Bio by Rachel Carton. Would encourage anyone who works in marketing or social to check that out. She has spot on insights, great resource. So I know that's something I take a lot of inspiration from. On the brand side, I'm always inspired by brands a lot like PBR that rely on non-traditional to grow. I think it's hard to not mention Duolingo in that conversation. I think the work that team has done on social and even with their product marketing it just absolutely stands out. I think they stay true to their mission. It's been super fun to see them grow in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not the first person I think who's answered Duolingo to that.
Yeah,
So
that means it's working.
yeah. So Rachel, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate
Yeah.
having you on, and come back anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That was Rachel Keeton, Marketing Director for Pabst Brewing. And I'm John Springer, Senior Reporter at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Chiardio, and remind you that you can subscribe to The Marketer's Brief wherever you get your podcasts. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.